Hi everyone, and welcome back to the Tom Morgan Drum Studio. Today with this video I'm starting a new playlist of videos based on my book, A Sequential Approach to Rudimental Snare Drum. And so just like the other book, The Sequential Approach to Fundamental Snare Drum, it's published by C. Allen Publications. You can get it through their website, or you can get it through steveweissmusic.com, or better yet, you can go to your local drum shop or music store and purchase it there. If they don't have it, ask them to order it. It's good to support your local drum shop. So this book is based on the rudiments, what we would have called the 26 standard American drum rudiments when I was first learning, but now it's the 40 international drum rudiments. Why the rudiments? Well, there's a long tradition of rudimental drumming that goes back hundreds of years, and it really is connected with the military. All the military organizations clear back long ago to the Revolutionary War, and even before that, had drums with them. And drums were used to signal troops, to inspire troops to go into battle, and things like that. And the people that played drums were usually young boys, 10, 12, teenagers, young teenagers. And so there were different drum beats that meant different things. A drum beat might mean go to dinner, or go march into a battle, or reform the troops in a certain way. And so drums, up until about the Civil War, even then we had drums in the battles, but the cannons became so loud in the Civil War that eventually drums you couldn't hear them in the battlefield. But anyway, these boys were taught these different beats, and the beats were made up of different rhythmic components that came to be known as rudiments, and they're just basic little rhythms. And so a certain beat that they had to learn might be made up of 5 or 6 different rudiments. And so if they knew the rudiments, they could just say, okay, play a 9-stroke roll and a flam, a 9-stroke roll and a flam, 2 paradiddles, and then 3 flams. And if they knew how to play those rudiments, it was very easy to teach them that beat. So why do we do the rudiments today? Well, because the rudiments actually have become the equivalent of our scales and arpeggios for drums. If you learn the rudiments and learn to play them well, you have good snare drum technique that then can be transferred to all kinds of different parts of percussion playing. Certainly the drum set. Rudiments are very applicable to the drum set. And we've just over the years realized that there's really no better way to learn snare drum technique than to learn the rudiments and learn them thoroughly. So that's why I wrote this book. Also, I've noticed that, of course, with the popularity of drum corps, there's a lot of interest in rudimental drumming, but the average high school kid who's in marching band, playing in a drum corps style marching band, if you went up and asked them to play certain rudiments, they might not even know the name of that rudiment. If you showed it to them, then they might be able to play it. But what they're really doing is just learning their drum music in marching band, but they're not learning the individual rudiments and practicing them the way that's really going to do them the most good. So again, that's why this book was written. So we're going to go through it. I'm going to keep adding more videos. If you want to buy the book, you can go through it with me, and I'll be demonstrating all the different solos and exercises and rudiments as we go along. So today we're just going to start on page 4 and 5 because I want to make clear my terminology, which is a little bit different maybe than what you've heard before. It's not the common terminology for taps and strokes. But I think if you understand what I'm saying here, it'll help you understand a little bit more clearly how they work and the reason behind the way we play them. So if you look at page 4, I have 4 different taps and stroke patterns. And the first one's called the tap down. By the way, I'm going to be demonstrating this book using traditional grip because traditional grip really has its roots in rudimental drumming. And so it makes sense to use traditional grip as we do this. If you play match grip, you can certainly learn this book with match grip. I've taught it to students who play match grip for many, many years. Works great, but I'm just going to use traditional just to be different. Also notice that my pad is slanted, and I've talked about this in other videos. You don't want to play on a flat surface and play like this. And I see so many people that are doing this. Even well-known drum corps instructors will demonstrate different things on a flat snare drum, and they don't realize it apparently, but they're playing like this because this grip kind of demands that you play the way this left hand works. It demands that you play on a slanted surface. And if you need more information about that, check out my video on traditional grip. Okay, so page 4. The first stroke is called the tap down. So most people would just refer to these as taps, and the tap is simply just playing with the wrist, no arm much at all. Of course, with traditional, I'm rotating my forearm with the left hand, and then with the right hand, I'm using a waving motion. Okay, but it's a tap down because I'm not lifting the stick up after I play the tap. I'm simply leaving it down there. And I would use this when the next thing that stick is going to play is going to be another tap. I'm preparing for what comes next. All these stroke types prepare for what the stick is going to play next. And if you think about it, drumming is similar in that way to pool playing. If you've ever played on a pool table, you know what I'm talking about. You may think, well, how is drumming like playing pool? Well, if you've ever seen those pool sharks, those expert pool players on television or something, where they, once it's their turn, they start taking shots and they just clear the table and they win the game. Well, if you look at what they're doing, they're not just thinking about the shot they're playing. They're thinking about making sure the cue ball goes to a spot which will set up the next shot. It doesn't do any good to make a fantastic shot and then leave the cue ball over somewhere where they can't make the next shot. And so the same thing is true here. If I play a tap down, I'm preparing for this stick to play another tap. If I play a tap, but I end up here and then the next thing it's supposed to play is a tap, I'm in trouble. It's not in the right place to do that. So that's a tap down, preparing for the stick to play a tap again. Number 2 is the stroke up. So again, people would normally just call these strokes, but I'm playing a stroke and preparing for that stick to play another stroke. Okay, so I'm using my forearm and even rotating at the shoulder, using my arm in this kind of motion. And the same thing here. Bring the stick back up so that it can play another stroke. Okay, so that's what I call a stroke up. Most people would just call that a stroke, but it doesn't really tell you enough information about what happens after you play the note. Okay, number 3 is the tap up. So as you might guess, this is when you play a tap, but that stick is going to play a stroke next. So you start with a tap, but then you lift it because now this stick is ready to play a stroke. Now the classic rudiment where this is employed would be the flam. If you watch me play flams, you'll see both sticks are doing this stroke, or this tap, number 3, the tap down, the tap up, and it's also doing the stroke down. I might as well talk about that, where I start with a stroke, but then I leave the stick down. I use my back fingers a little bit and freeze it there, because the next thing this is going to play, this stick is going to play a tap. So when I play alternating flams, that's exactly what I'm doing. I'm playing tap ups and stroke downs with each hand. So watch me, and then I'll start playing flams, and then I'll just go to one hand so you can see what each hand is doing by itself. Stroke down, tap up. Okay. Now, when I'm playing flams, or when I'm playing anything, I'm mentally not thinking about whether I'm playing one of these 4 types of strokes. I mean, I formed the habit of just having my sticks go to the place they need to go. And that's how, the way that happens is by practicing the rudiments. The rudiments are our scales and arpeggios. Just like a violinist or a pianist will practice scales and scales, not because they're going to go perform scales, but because it's going to give them the facility so that when they play actual music, their fingers will go right where they're supposed to go without them thinking about it. And so when we practice rudiments, we're learning how to make our sticks move in this way, and they're going to do it automatically. Okay, now page 5 are just a bunch of exercises that give you an opportunity to kind of think about this a little bit. The first line there at the top is just practicing playing tap down. And you can practice it with your right hand, practice it with your left, practice it alternating strokes, starting with the right or starting with the left. And then the next line down, it says stroke up. And this is the same idea, but now I'm using a full stroke. So use all rights, all lefts, alternating, starting with the right and then starting with the left. Notice I'm bringing him right back up. I'm not doing this. I'm bringing him up like this, down, up, like that. Because if I stop here, then I have to, if I'm going to play another stroke, my stick's not in the right place, and I'm going to have to bring it back up and then come down. So I want to bring it right back up to the place where it's going to need to be to play the next thing. And then you have different tap stroke combinations. So if you look at number 1 there, the accent is going to be the stroke. So when I play that line, when I get to the second to the last 8th note in the first measure, the one on 4 that I play with my right, when I finish that, I'm going to play a tap up to prepare for the stroke that's going to come on 1 of the next measure. So I'm going to go 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2. And I do a stroke down after I play that stroke in the each time. Okay, now do I think about that when I'm playing? No. Once I get that kind of ingrained in my head, I'm just going to go. But that's actually what I'm doing, is I'm lifting just on that count 4 in this case to prepare for the stroke down. And so that's really the case on all the rest of these. I'm going to lift just before the stroke comes up for that hand. So number 2 gives me a left hand stroke and a right hand stroke in each measure. So it's going to look like this. Okay, so faster. And number 3, I won't go through them slowly, but you'll get the idea. Notice there's quite a difference between the accented note and the non-accented note. I'm not playing kind of in the middle here at this point. I'm playing, I'm making a big distinction between the stroke and the tap. And the last one. Okay, so that is page 4 and 5. So that covers the strokes and gets you started thinking about that. So we'll stop there for today and continue watching. Please subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. Next video we'll go on to page 6 and 7 and talk about sticking systems, and then we'll leap right into the first rudiments that we're going to study. So please subscribe and like this video. Tell your friends or your drummer friends to check it out, and we'll see you on the next video. All right, bye-bye.